Death to the kings. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? It's a rousing cry, a call to action that reminds us of the revolutionary roots of our liberal democracy, overthrowing the power of an authoritarian, unelected sovereign king. But if we were to use this phrase in today's world, who would we mean by kings? Would we mean this man, King Felipe VI of Spain? No, that doesn't seem right, does it? What about this man, the king? Closer maybe, but still quite off. What about these? Nation states. Leaders and kings, they come and go, they die. But it's countries like these that have been the central actor in politics for the last 3 centuries. This system of states has spread across the world until we find ourselves today in a globe comprised of just under 200 sovereign nation states. This system has always had a leader. Today's leader, no matter what pretensions we might give to the UN, is the United States of America. Really? Well, how so? Well, economically speaking, last year the World Bank estimated that the American economy accounted for 1/4 of the world's GDP. To put that into context, the second was China with 14%. It also has the largest military. Indeed, the world's largest air force is run by the US Air Force. The world's second largest air force? Well, that's run by the US Navy. So, economically and militarily, the US dominate the world. And indeed it has done since 1945. But why then should we say death to America, death to China, death to all nation states as we know them? For the last 40 years, this planet has been undergoing a series of revolutions in communication, transportation, trade, the sciences, and even social relations. We call these processes globalization, and they have lifted humanity to unprecedented levels of development. However, the consequences of globalization could also cause unprecedented levels of human suffering through modernized warfare and international terrorism, through rising wealth inequality, and through the potentially catastrophic damage being done to the environment. These are problems that affect every country, whether small or large. And states have simply failed to address them. And America is a potent symbol of this failure. Like Elvis in Vegas in the 70s, America is bloated, is tired, bereft of the glamour and the sex appeal it once exuded, struggling against its fading powers with increasingly bizarre and desperate stage antics. It's funny. But what's not funny is how America has failed to address international terrorism, despite deploying some pretty terror-inducing tactics of its own. It has failed to address wealth inequality, even if in its own nation. In fact, the wealth gap is wider than ever. And it has failed to make comprehensive progress on climate change. Timid steps will not meet the distance that takes leaps and bounds to cover. What are we to do then? I propose that we shake off the shackles of a bygone generation, we renounce our claim to individual nationhood, and we embrace a truly cooperative global government. Doesn't the UN already do that? Well, no, actually. The UN is not a world government. It doesn't really intervene in a state's sovereignty, and the few times it has been in the case of gross human rights abuse. No. The world government of my vision is one where the resources of every single state are pulled together to meet the challenges that we face as a planet. Countries are reduced to electoral regions, and national governments cede their authority to one central source of power, a government with more power, more of a mandate than the Americas, the UN, than Britain, than any country in history or collection of countries has had. Now, this sounds like a utopian vision, doesn't it? And I'll admit it is slightly a utopian vision. Why would America ever give up the power that it has accrued over such a long period of time? Why would China give up its rising power? In fact, the logistical problems alone of establishing a world government would almost certainly mean that any kind of project would end in failure. It is the greatest and most difficult political project in history. And yet, in Europe, the divine right of kings ruled for centuries. In Japan, the emperor was the physical embodiment of God for over 1,000 years. No one thought these systems would change, and yet they did. When it encounters a better solution for its social relations, humanity inevitably chooses the better option. It's how we progressed as a species. It's how we became the dominant species on the planet. This is the next step in our progression. Yes, the difficulties, the challenges are tremendous, unthinkable. But the consequences are unthinkable as well. And we will pass them on to our children and to our children's children if we fail to act now. It is with that in mind that we must call for the death of America, the death of China, the death of all nation-states, and embrace a vision of one cooperative central world government, a world government ruling for all, rather than just a few. This is my idea for a better world, and it should be yours as well. Thank you.